Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this wirework bracelet made from a simple 3-strand braid adding beads. And this is what it looks like. So this is the effect you get. And this is using rondelle beads, but you can use other kinds as well, other shapes. And then you have the clasp. So if you want to learn how to make this, then keep watching. And these are the things that you're going to need. You'll need a selection of pliers. I've got a flat nose pliers, a round nose plier, and a wire cutter. And then you'll obviously need the wire that you're going to be working with. In this case I'm going to be using some 1mm silver wire, and you don't have to use this specific gauge, but it's just what I'm going to be showing you within this video. You can use different gauges, thicker and thinner as well. It completely depends on the design that you want. And then I've got some rondelle beads here. These are just some glass ones, and they're just multicolored. But you don't have to, you can use rounds as well, other shapes, but these are just what I'm going to show you within this video. So get your things together and then let's get started. So the first thing that you need to do is get whatever wire you're using ready. And you need to cut 2 lengths of this. The first length that you need to cut needs to be 50 centimeters long. And the other length needs to be 70 centimeters long. Because basically the long length is going to be folded around the short one to then form 2 lengths to work with. So get your wires ready. And then what you want to do is get out your long length of wire, the one that's 70 centimeters long. And you just want to kind of find the middle of this. So just put both ends together and then gently go up and pull it a bit so you know where the middle is. Like so. I know it's about here. And then you get your shorter length of wire out and you place that in front. Because what we need to do now is attach the long length to the shorter length. And you want to make sure you leave a bit of a tail of the short length above. Maybe roughly about 20 centimeters, if that, but just enough for you to help make the clasp at the end. So what you need to do is just coil the long wire around the short one, just once. So you just take it all the way around and pull it quite nice and tight, as tight as you can get it. And you'll still find that the middle, the short wire moves. You can move it through that loop that you just made, but it's just until we get our braid started. Then it'll stay in place. So just try and hold them in place for now, because what we need to do now is we're going to start off the actual braid. And this is just like a regular 3-strand braid, you're just using wire instead. So you have this, you have your shorter length running down the middle and then your long length attached to it. Basically folded in half, so it then turns into 2 lengths you're going to be working with. And remember to leave this tail at the top. So while it's still moving about a little bit, make sure you leave that tail. So what you need to do now is just start a regular braid. So you bring outside one over and into the middle. So just like a complete regular 3-strand braid. The only difference is we're working with wire, which obviously makes it a little bit different to work with, because it doesn't react quite the same way as cord would. And bring the other one over and into the middle. And then we've reached now the one that's originally came down the middle, the short one. So when we start incorporating that into the braid, it will then kind of fasten itself and it won't be moving anymore. So bring that over into the middle and you just continue this for a little bit. Try and make sure that you keep your wires nice and straight, don't get kinks and that in it. And if you do, just try and smooth them out. So we just want to make this braid with just a couple of centimeters of that. Like so, so we're ready. You have your wires in position to then start adding in the beads. Now the way that we're going to be adding the beads to this braid is we're going to be adding them to the outside of it. So that means you want to add it every time you take one of the outside strands to put in. So my next one to go is my left one to bring over to the middle. Before I do that, I want to just add one bead to it. So you just get the end of your wire, put a bead on. Obviously make sure that your bead will go on to whatever wire you're using. And then you then bring over the wire, just like you would do normally, into the middle. Like so. And then your bead sits there nicely. Make sure the bead stays to the outside of the braid and doesn't get brought into the middle with the wire, because that's how we're going to get the look that we want to achieve. So now the next one I need to bring over is from the right side over and into the middle. And again, before we do it, we just add a bead to that length of wire. Let it fall all the way down, like so. And then we bring in the wire. Like that. And again, making sure the bead stays on the outside. And then it sits there nicely. They kind of fit into place just perfectly. And like I said, in this case I'm using some rondelle beads, but it doesn't have to be. You can use rounds or other shapes. But the rondelles specifically, they do fit in nicely, just perfectly with the shape of the wires. So the next one is the left one to bring in. So I add a bead to that one. Make sure you kind of hold everything down while you're working with it. And bring the wire into the middle. And as you get along, you kind of only have to hold the most recent ones that you've been working with, because the rest then stays in place. It kind of gets locked in when you continue to braid. And then to the right side, you need to add a bead. Let it fall down. And then bring in the wire. Like so. As you can see, it's starting to build up now. And then the left side. Add a bead to that. Bring the wire over and into the middle. And it sits nicely there. So that's all there is to it. You just continue this way. Now my right side. So always when you grab the outside one, you add a bead and make sure it stays on the outside of the braid, and then bring that wire into the middle just like a regular braid. Like so. You continue like that until you think you've reached the length that you need it to be. And then I'll show you how we finish it off. So I've now kept braiding and adding in my beads, and I've reached the point where I feel it's going to be long enough. So what we need to do now is finish off the braid. So to do that, we're just going to stop adding in the beads and just go back to just the regular braiding with the wire, just like we did in the beginning, up here. Just do a little short section of that, just to tighten it all in, but also to make it nice and even on both ends. So you just continue with your regular braid, bring the outside in, like so. Again, just for a couple of centimeters. The only thing I'm going to make sure of is, because I still have one piece of wire that's longer than the others, I'm going to make sure that that ends up in the middle. So I'll bring that into the middle, and that's now in the middle. So I'm going to make sure that that's in the middle, because that's what we're going to be using then to form the other end of the clasp. And then we need to finish off these ends, secure it in place and finish off the ends, so we can then do the clasp. To do that, all I do is you start with one side and keep your middle one in the middle, and then the other one, this one is coming from underneath, so I'm just going to wrap it around the middle wire once or twice, nice and tight. As tight as you can get it. Just once or twice so it stays in place really. So it's fastened into place, and then cut off the excess, like so. And then I'm just going to go in with flat nose pliers and press down the very end so it lays flat and doesn't stick out too much. Yeah. And then we have the end on the other side, that's the short one. All I'm going to do with that is bring that across the top the other way around, and again just wrap it around the middle just once or twice, exactly the same, just to secure it in place. And then go in and cut off the excess. Now I like to cut the excess off of these to actually cut them off towards the front of the bracelet. And the reason for this is so you don't have them on the back and they scratch on your skin while you're wearing it, but also because we're going to be doing something just to cover them up at the end. So I find that it's better to just cut them off at the front. And the same thing again, you go in with your flat nose pliers, just press down that very end so it's not sticking out, like so. And then the other end is already nice and neat because that's where we started. So all that's left to do now is finish off the clasp. Now to do this, we do one end at a time. On one end you'll need to do a hook, and on the other end you'll need to do a loop. So on here we're just going to do a hook. It doesn't really matter what you do on where. So I'm going to take my flat nose pliers to do this, and where you coiled off your wires and cut them off, you want to start from there and then work your way up this long tail of wire you have left. You want to go up a few centimeters, maybe 5 or something. It's just long enough for you to then shape the hook, but then double it back over to then actually make the hook shape. So what I'm going to do is go up and then again put your piece in sideways on your pliers, and then bend this wire all the way around and back on itself, like so. So this is what you have. When it lays flat it looks like this. And then we need to make this little tip part smaller. So you just go in with your flat nose pliers and just squeeze it, just nice and gently, until you feel like you reach the point where you're happy with it. So as you can see now, it's a lot smaller and tighter. Make sure you keep your wires nice and straight, and if they bend or kink a little bit, straighten them out before you move on, like so. So you now have the other wire coming down next to it. What we need to do now is this loose end that you have, we need to finish that off and wrap it and secure the whole thing in place. So I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and then bend the end up a little bit first, and then come across the other wire. Make sure you leave a little bit of space for you to wrap around, and then you just start wrapping it around nice and tight again so it's nice and secure until you meet the other wraps. Like so. And just, if something's gone out of shape a little bit, just put it back into shape. So we now have this part done, and we wrapped the end around to secure it. And what we need to do now is finish off the end. So I'm going to get my cutters out first of all, because we need it to be a little bit shorter. So you want a length of a few centimeters. It's whatever you find best, really, what you prefer. Because now we're going to get our round nose pliers out, and we want to coil this end in and spiral it in So you put your round nose pliers in right at the end, grab it and start spiraling it inward. Like so. So you start getting a loop there. And I'm just going to go in and cut off the very tip of that, just to get it more of a rounded shape. And go back in with my round nose pliers and just continue looping. And how long you've made the end, how much you cut off, how much you left, that determines how large this spiral is going to be. And just keep spiraling it in, and you can switch to your flat nose pliers, press it down so your nose is nice and flat, grab it and then spiral it all the way in, like so. And just spiral it until you're happy with it, until it sits right where you want it to sit. So you have it laying on top of basically where you cut off all your wires. So it lays on top of that and protects from that, and you just press it down as far down as it'll go. So you finished off the ends really nicely, so it looks really neat, but also you're not really left with any scratchy or catchy ends. So that's how to finish off that end. Now we just need to make the actual hook here. We already have this part ready. So I'm going to go in and grab my round nose pliers again, put them roughly around the middle of this piece, and then fold this end back on itself. So from the side it looks like this. And then the very tip of it, I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers and kink that outward. Like so. So there you have your hook ready. So that's done. Now we need to finish off the other end. And on here we need to make the loop. So again, we lay it sideways, put your flat nose pliers in, make sure you leave a little bit of space for you to wrap on, and then kink it back so it looks like this. You have an angle, and then you can get out something like a pen or something. Anything really, depends what shape you want your loop to be as well. It doesn't have to be round, but I'm just going to grab a pen and lay that right where you made the bend, on top of the bend, and start wrapping the tail of my wire around it. Like so. So you have a nice rounded shape there. And then the tail of this that you have left, you want to finish that off. If you feel like you just need to correct it a little bit, you can do. Better to do that now before you seal it in place, like so. So grab a hold of your loop and then start again coiling your wire, the tail, around your base wire. You can always, if you feel like it's not quite tight enough, you can help it along and squeeze it down with your flat nose pliers. You can always help pull with your flat nose pliers as well, especially say if your tail's a little bit short. It can be quite hard to grab a hold of and get a proper grip. So use your flat nose pliers and guide it around in place until you run out of space, like so. So again, we have this little tail left now, the end of the wire. So all you need to do now is the exact same thing as before. We need to make a little spiral, and just straighten this out if you need to. Now again, if you need to cut anything off, just cut something off the end if it's too long. otherwise you just start coiling. And you can do it either way, you can make it coil downward or upward. That's really personal preference. Put your round nose pliers in the end and coil it back on itself. I'm just going to cut off the very tip again, like so. Go back in and continue coiling it, spiraling it back on itself. And you can switch over to use your flat nose pliers and just get it right into position, and then press it down right where you want it to sit, like so. So again, you have no rough ends and you have it finished off nicely. Nice little detail. And then you pretty much have your finished bracelet. All that's left to do now is bend it into shape. If you have something of the shape that you need it to be, you can just fold it around something. Otherwise you can just use your hands to do it. If you just gently start pressing it, making sure you just put a little bit of pressure on at a time, move your way across the bracelet and do it gently, and it's not going to break. Help it into shape until you're happy with it. And then when it's about there, all you do is hook it in place, and then that's pretty much your finished bracelet. So that's how it looks. And like I said, you can use any kind of materials that you want. This is just to show you the technique. So that's how you make this bracelet. So I hope you enjoyed that, and thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I want to show you how to make this beaded braid turned into a bracelet. And this is what it looks like. So this is the effect that you achieve, the pattern with the cord. In this case I've just used two different colours of beads, but you don't have to, you can do whatever you want with your design. And I've used rondelles in this one,